About 3 years ago, Sherry King, who's a superintendent in Mamaroneck, New York, contacted me and said that a series of about 11 inner-ring suburban districts were gathering to discuss what they were calling the minority achievement gap, and asked me if I would help them think about some of the research. And I said that I would if we could work with some young people and do participatory research with young people from these schools and from some urban schools. So that's what we did. Over the last 3 years, we've gathered together young people from 11 suburban districts, some young people from Delaware, and then a bunch of young people from small urban high schools in New York City. And we've created research camps and at St. Peter's College and at the Graduate Center for them to design research, collect data, analyze data, and produce reports, websites, CDs, and now performances of the data. The young people were really gathered to study race and class inequities in their schools and in the nation. Within a moment of our meeting, the young people assured us that we should not use the language of the achievement gap, but should call it an opportunity gap, because given the conditions, the daily conditions of their schooling, they understood themselves to be suffering inside an opportunity gap, whether it was finance inequity that distinguished the urban and suburban schools, or tracking within the suburban schools where young people are profoundly segregated by race and class. And we would later come to realize that the students of color were pretty systematically being redlined out of access to rigorous, intellectually exciting curriculum within many of those suburban school settings. So we gathered up young people who were white and black and Latino and Asian and every combination thereof, from AP and special ed, from the suburbs and from urban America, and we created a space where they all got to be the most brilliant poets and performers and colleagues and friends and caring citizens to one another. And that will ultimately produce the performance of, on May 15th for the 50th anniversary of Brown. With many of my graduate students, Maria Torre, April Burns, Yasser Payne, Monique, Jen Weiss, Rosemary Roberts, Keisha Smith, Janice Bloom, Laurie Chage. We have long been involved in participatory research, first in a prison, in Bedford Hills Women's Prison, where we worked to create a research collective with women in prison, and then in the last 3 years with young people from these high schools. We bring a commitment and ethic around participatory research because we believe that the people most affected by social injustice have a deep, contextualized understanding of both the macro structures but the micro practices of injustice, the indignities, the lack of respect. From the outside, I know about the finance inequities, the tracking, the absence or presence of credentialed educators. Speaking with young people, we learn just about the microaggressions, what A.J. Franklin would call the microaggressions of hearing, "You did very well on your SATs for a Latina. Are you sure you want to apply to Brown? That seems like a stretch. Is anybody home to help you with your homework?" In one setting, young people did a survey and they said that the teachers knew them well and respected them and understood them. And then the black and Latinos kids said, "But they don't think I'm smart." So we learned a lot from young people about the nuances of injustice, what we call the drip feed of social inequity and how it saturates the soul. We learned much more about how much kids across race, ethnicity, and class yearn to be educated well, yearn to know that what they think is considered knowledge, yearn to express themselves. Even the relatively privileged kids kind of knew they were privileged, wanted to justify it, and wanted to say, "This is profoundly unfair." I can't tell you how many times young people said, "It's 50 years after Brown versus Board of Education." And I can walk down the halls of my high school and look in and still know if it's an AP class because it's white, with one awkward-looking black or multiracial kid, or it's a special ed class because it's all black or all Latino.